Hello, everyone. It's David Bryant, Mr. Support Friend, and I'd like to welcome you to session 6 of my personal development training. Now, in this session and in also session 7, we're going to be focusing on how you can effectively communicate with people, interact with people effectively, and be able to get results in terms of that interaction. It's really important as far as personal development is concerned to be able to know how to communicate with people and to effectively be able to get your messaging across, be able to listen to what other people have to say, be able to collaborate with people effectively. And so I'm going to be going through some things related to the types of people that you'll interact with and what you should probably do in terms of the way to approach them or to talk with them. And then also evaluate people and be able to tell who are you communicating with and what could you say or listen to the way they say something in a way that's effective so that you can get great results in achieving whatever dreams or goals you might have related to that. So let's go ahead on and get started with this session, session 6. And the title of this session is 3 Types of People Based on Status and Personality. Status and personality. So let's take a look at those 2 categories. It's important that you support and empower yourself with some quality communication skills that will help you interact with 3 types of people you will cross paths with in life based on status and personality. So let's take a look at the different status and personality types and some basic concepts you can use when you're communicating with people. All right, so we're going to do this again in a chart and column format. So let's start on the left-hand side first with status type number 1, and those are mentors. Those are the people that you look up to. How can you effectively communicate with people that you look up to? So how to communicate with mentors. When you're communicating with mentors, always ask them for their opinion, even if you already know how you feel, or you may have a very strong opinion as to what the answer might be or what you should possibly do in a situation, but you're coming to the mentor to get their opinion. Tell them that you value their opinion and would like them to give you their thoughts and feelings about the topic, item, or situation. Now, why is this important to do it this way? Well, think about it. Think if you were the mentor. Think if you were the person who had more experience than a person who came to you, and that person was asking you for your opinion about something that you felt very confident about the knowledge that you had about that particular situation or a person or whatever the question might be. If the person that came to you, you knew that they weren't as experienced as you or they didn't have your track record, and they were trying to tell you what they thought something should be or how they should respond to something versus asking you your opinion, how would you view that person? So in flipping that around and putting yourself in the position that you're going to the mentor, even if you know how you already feel, even if you think you know the answer or the solution or how you're going to go about doing whatever it is that you're asking the question to the mentor about, still put yourself in a position as though you want the advice. Because what you're going to do with that is put yourself in a win-win position. Even if you feel that what you know is the way to go, or you're going to do that anyway, you're going to be able to either, 1, get a validation of that if the mentor says the same thing that you feel, or 2, get another perspective on it if the mentor thinks differently than what you think. Then, of course, the choice is going to always be back to you as to how you take the next step in what you do. Are you going to follow the advice that the mentor gave you? Or are you going to go with what you thought should, happen in the situation? And if it's the same answer, then you've gotten your, validation from somebody else of what you actually thought. It also is going to make you look very good in the eyes of the mentor, because the mentor is going to feel, important and valuable, and that you value their opinion. And that will be good for long-term relationships. This person comes to me, asks me for advice. That means they respect me. That makes me feel good as the mentor. And now you have a good communication flow going with any mentors that you might be communicating with. So that's how I would suggest that you approach a mentor. And I've done that throughout my whole life, whether it be personal or career, friendship. If there's somebody that I know knows more than I do, if there's somebody that I look up to and respect, I'm always going to put myself in a submissive type of a position where they're the leader and I'm following. And that way it makes them feel, where they feel valid in terms of who they are because of their experience or their knowledge. And I'm coming to them and it makes me look good in the way that I'm respecting that they know something about a particular situation or subject matter. And that's always going to work for both sides. All right, so status type number 2 are your peers. So these are the people who are equal to you. So what is the suggestion there on how to communicate with peers? When communicating with peers, tell them that you would like them to give you their thoughts and feelings about a topic, item, or situation because you feel they are similar to you in some way. You get that? So you're saying, I'm like you, and I want to get a validation that what it is that I'm thinking, or I'm kind of wondering how to solve this problem, I respect you because I think you're like me and we're similar. So it's going to, again, put that person that you're coming to in a position where you're respecting them, you're showing them that you feel that they're equal to you, and then you're going to get your answer back from them and whatever they might say to you. It could be that you're similar in beliefs, financial status, personality, etc. So this peer-to-peer could have different categories. So if it's beliefs and you know that somebody believes similarly to you, it could be a belief about the way to do business. It could be a spiritual belief. It could be a belief about parenting. It could be a belief about how do you go about doing a particular task. We both believe it should be done that way. We both know that we're similar that way, right? Political belief, right? It could be that category. So if it's financial status, then, economically, this person is at the same level that you are. If it's personality-wise, maybe both of you have a similar personality and you want to be able to get their opinion and feedback because you know that their personality is like yours. Maybe your person is a real action go-getter type, and this person that you're talking to, that's your peer, is exactly the same as you, right? So that's the way you can kind of measure what we're talking about as far as the peer status is concerned. You don't look up to them or need to guide them. They're not following you. You just want them to give you their thoughts and feelings related to their own personal experiences related to whatever the topic might be. So again, there's going to be respect between two people, you and the other person. The other person is going to be like you, so you're going to feel very confident that if they think that and they give me the same answer that I'm thinking, then that's going to be good. And then if they give you a different answer and have another perspective, you're getting another perspective in the situation. So either way, you're in a win situation. You're definitely not making the peer feel as though you're superior to them, and obviously that you're not inferior to them, meaning you're not looking up to them and they're not looking up to you, that you are absolutely equal, and they know that just by default. They respect you and you respect them. Okay, so now let's go to the third status type. The third status type are followers. Those are the people that look up to you. So how are you going to interact and communicate with a person that you know that you may be the mentor, or they just look up to you? You may be older, whatever the situation might be, more experienced. Okay, when communicating with followers, make recommendations and suggestions based on your experience. If you are a person of real integrity, your followers will trust your opinion and want to learn more about a topic, item, or situation you are suggesting or recommending. Just make sure, and this is so important, just make sure you don't misuse your influence in any way. When you know that you know more than somebody else, when you're older than somebody else, when you know that if you told them something, they would do exactly what you told them to do, that puts a lot of power in your lap. That means that now you have a lot of influence and power over somebody. A lot of people take advantage of that because they know people look up to them. And they'll tell people what that person, they'll tell them something that will benefit the person, who's being looked up to. So let's say in this case, it was you. If you tell somebody something and you know that they'll do what you tell them to do, but in some way that it's manipulative or it's going to be to your best benefit and not to their best benefit, but it's just going to give you more out of the situation, that's not cool. And there's a lot of people that do that. Bosses do that. Older people do that. Sometimes men will try to do that to women if they know that the women will follow them, and they'll, misuse that power that they have, and it's not cool. And it happens the other way too. There'll be women that will know that there's a man that they can manipulate, and they'll tell the man what they need to hear. Or, it can be two different, like I said, age groups or whatever it might be. There's a lot of power when you are the person that people look up to. So don't take advantage of that. Don't use that in a negative way. Have integrity and, use that influence in a positive way. We're always trying to build people up in what we do with our personal development here in this particular training, right? I'm always telling you, build people up. Don't be a dream taker, be a dream maker. So in this case, a dream taker could really manipulate a person. Let me give you an example, just because this is really important, right? And if you see this in other people, then, make sure that you check that and make sure you go, well, wait a minute, that's not good. I don't like that sign of what that person's doing or what they're saying to me. If somebody, for example, knew that they could tell somebody or make a negative comment like, you're really not doing this very well, and they know that that person looks up to them, then that person is going to feel disappointed. They're going to feel like they're letting down the person who's told them, hey, you're not really doing that right. You need to really do that better if you want to be with me, because, I'm up here and you're down here. It kind of sends that signal. You'll never be able to come up here where I am if you don't do what I tell you to do. And there's a lot of people that are followers by nature. They don't want to offend people. They're shy. And you can manipulate those people if you have a mentorship or a higher status or a power position. And that's where, bosses take advantage of people at times when they know that they can tell people to do stuff, and that person is in an awkward position, because if they don't do what that boss told them to do, they could get fired, and if they do what they tell them to do, then the boss is controlling them. When you have a position of power, you just can't misuse it. And if you do, you're playing a dangerous game. Just energetically, you're playing a dangerous game. And just in life, in general, it can come back to bite you. So when you are the person that people are looking up to, be responsible. If you're a parent, be responsible with your kids. You have all the power. If your kids are under your roof and you're paying the bills and you have all the power, don't misuse that power. Be the person who is in a leadership position and is going to give whoever it is that you're leading good advice, treat them with respect. And I can tell you that this has happened with me when I was looking up to my mentors. I think about, Arif Martin and the way that he spoke to me when he knew he knew way more than I knew in music, but he still made me feel as though we were equal. He made me feel as though we were peers, even though we both knew we were nowhere near being peers. He was way up here and I was just getting started. But he would ask me for my opinion. He would ask me questions. What do you think about this chord change? Do you think that I should do it this tempo? Think about that. Imagine somebody who has all this knowledge, all of this experience, all of these accolades, and they're asking you where you're just starting off, do you think this is what I should do? The person who's already proven himself and is up here in high status. Imagine how that, left me feeling. It left me feeling like, wow, he asked me for my opinion. So when you're in that mentor, position where you're above it and you have somebody who's following you or doesn't have as much knowledge or wisdom as you can make them feel so empowered if you treat them like they're equal, even though they're not equal to you because of experience, knowledge, whatever it might be, okay? So think about these things in communication, because if you're building a team, right, you're working with other people or collaborating, you'll get the best out of people if you're using these types of techniques in your communication. So we've got our mentors, our peers, and our followers as our three status types. Now let's go to the personality types, right? And it starts with extroverts. These are people who are outgoing, right? Real outgoing personalities. So how do you effectively communicate with extroverts? When communicating with an extrovert, it's important that you listen and allow them to talk and express their outgoing personality. Give them the space they need to be themselves. It's also important that you do not allow them to completely dominate a conversation or situation. So the timing in which that you come into the communication is important. and that you find the right opportunities to express yourself to create a balanced conversation. So if you know somebody has a type A personality, they're really outgoing, they talk a lot, why would you want to battle them if you are both going to be talking about the same subject matter? So if you're the smart one, now remember, you could be an extrovert too. But if you are smart, what you'll do is identify where the other person is at. This means you have to be aware, and we're going to get into the awareness tools in the next session. But what you really need to be doing is you need to be identifying first, who is this person? What is their status type? And what is their personality type? If you get those two immediately, then you'll know how should you communicate with that person. Every person is different. Communication can motivate people or demotivate people, where people won't want to do stuff if you use the wrong communication skill with them. So let's just say that you are also an extrovert. Now, what you can do is submit to allowing the other person to lead the conversation, knowing that you could lead the conversation at any time. You could jump in and just dominate and start talking and doing all kinds of things. But if you're smart, what you'll do is allow the other person to go a certain distance, not where they dominate everything, but they go a certain distance, and then take your spot to jump in and come back with response, with a different opinion, with an affirmation of, yes, I agree with you, whatever it might be. When you learn this rhythm of how to, communicate with people, and I had to do this a lot, especially in the music industry, because there were a lot of egos. There were a lot of talented people creatively that were very strong in believing that they were amazing, and that's just that free-spirited creative person. But there were also business executives who were in power positions. And I was very good at identifying what type of person is this that I'm talking to, and then how should I best probably communicate with this person. If I know this person likes to talk a lot, man, we just got the best thing, man. This record's going to be off the chart. David, you got to listen to this stuff. I go, wow, really? Yeah. And I give a lot of space. I wouldn't start talking about myself. I wouldn't reject that offer of listen to what I've got. Me. Man, yeah, I want to hear it. Space. You know what I mean? So, and this can be in any field. This can be in a family. All right. Now, the key is there are going to be situations where there are going to be dominant personality types that are extroverts. Okay. That can get a little challenging, especially if there's dysfunction, control with the person that you're dealing with. Sometimes you may have to eat it. Sometimes you may have to stand up for yourself in a way that sends a signal to the other person that they can't just run all over you. And one of the ways to do that is, again, submitting to their leadership. Is like when you interrupt, is ask them a question of like permission. Can I say something? So they've been talking for a long time, right? Hey, can I put a suggestion in? Not, hey, this is what it's going to be. Because the minute you start like getting into that battle energy, if that makes sense, if somebody tells you this, right? They go blah 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 blah, and you immediately come back with, well, blah 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 blah, and then they come back with blah 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 blah, right? It's probably more effective to say, okay, well, I kind of hear what you're saying. Can I share another thought with you? Like you're asking them permission to talk, even though you're going to talk anyway, right? Regardless if they go, no, don't share. Nobody's really going to say that to you. And they'll say most likely, sure. And at that moment, now you take the lead. And you say, well, based on what I just heard you say, I think you may want to consider, right? Because again, there's an extrovert, it could be a mentor, even if it's a peer. You could be saying to them, hey, I think you may want to consider this because here's the reason why. And you're always justifying it to what they said. So you have to find the right opportunities to express yourself to create that balanced conversation. Boy, I could tell you some stories of people. There are some people who are expert at doing this, especially in the entertainment industry. I can tell you, the personality types in the entertainment industry are extreme. These are highly creative people that have special gifts. They function in a completely different way than the mainstream person out there. And there's this balance. And I think I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you this story. Okay, why not? I'm not going to mention who the artist was or who the producer was because I don't want to do that. But I was in a studio once when an A-level producer was recording the rhythm track, which means they were putting the keyboard part down, the drums and the guitar, and the keyboard player was playing the keyboard bass. And an A-level famous music artist that this A-level producer was producing came into the studio in the middle of this, rhythm section recording session, and came in and just started doing her thing, talking about, it's too fast. I can't sing to this. That's ridiculous. What are you guys thinking? Getting into the diva mode, right? And I watched the most beautiful way to maintain what was right and not to let the ego of the creative person dominate the situation. So this is what happened. So the producer said, hey, fellas, come on in. She thinks that it's too fast. Played it back and listened, and then looked at the leader of the musicians before they went back out and kind of gave him a nod and just shook his head like, don't change anything. And just said, hey, fellas, let's go back out and do another take and see if this is better. Then he told the artist, he said, hey, okay, we're going to go do another take. Here, come sit here and we'll go and do this. And then he told the engineer, don't record anything. Just do the playback of what we already have. And he said, okay, fellas, let's go ahead and do it a little bit slower, like she said. And they went ahead on it and they played back. They faked like they were playing what they were playing. She couldn't see their hands or their whatever. Clearly, she was behind the console. And he listened and he nodded his head. And we all kind of knew it was the same tempo. Everybody who was in the studio in that time, she was so out of it, okay, that she really couldn't tell what was up. All right. To be honest with you, this person was high, right? This creative artist was high, and so she really wasn't in alignment at that moment. In order to maintain the energy of the session, the producer took control and was able to communicate to her and go, so now what do you think? Oh, perfect. It's fantastic. Okay, look, I got to go. And she had 2 or 3 people with her, and she took off and left. All of us cracked up and laughed. And to me, that was just one example of an A-level producer knowing how to deal with a personality type, but still get what they needed to get and not sacrifice what they knew was right and let somebody else mess up the situation because they were out of touch at that moment. So those are just as little examples of how you are going to have to deal with people in situations. Now, that's a musical example, but it happens in corporate America. It happens on teams. There's ways in which you can communicate with people and be really, really effective. I've done it, and I'm not perfect at it, but I think I've done it in ways where I've learned from people that you can communicate with people and get things and get deals, and get people to cooperate if you use the right strategies. And that's part of your personal development, to recognize, who am I dealing with right here? What position do I need to take at this moment in this situation? All right, personality type 2 is the opposite, introverts, okay? These are people who are quiet and reserved. So what do you need to do to communicate effectively with an introvert? When communicating with introverts, it's important that you ask a lot of questions. This will help in getting introverted people to open up. So you're going to be kind of prodding them by continuing to ask questions when they kind of give short answers, or they're shy, or they don't talk that much, right? Find things you have in common and focus on creating conversations related to those areas. So if you know that the shy person has something in common with you, or a topic that they really like, go to that, because that'll make them probably feel more comfortable, because they'll feel like they can talk about something that they are aware of or understand. And then you're using that as a common ground way to kind of get them to communicate and open up. If there is nothing that's common, then you have to keep asking questions and do it in a delicate way. You don't want to be forceful, because that can make a shy person shut down or feel intimidated, right? Try to be calm and supportive when you're communicating with an introverted person. Don't bring your voice up really high if you can bring it down a little bit. If you know that this person doesn't like loud and intimidating and boisterous, then maybe to get them to be a person who gives you answers and interacts with you more effectively, you change the tone of your voice a little bit with that person. You slow down the way you talk maybe a little bit with that person. So if you talk a mile a minute by naturally, and you want to be effective in the communication, and you know that this person over here is really not going to be able to process all that information because they're going, oh my God, that's too much for me to process, then you may need to change yourself to make the situation work. It's not you're giving up who you are. You're just picking the method to communicate with somebody else to get the effective result that you want. See, some people won't do that. They'll say, I'm not going to change for anybody. I'm just going to be myself. That's me thinking. That's not we thinking. Remember when I talked about we should be about not just about me, but what's in it for we. How can we get the best for the whole entire group? Those are the leaders in the world. Those are the ones that know. Coaches in athletics will know the personalities of their players. Some players they can scream at and it motivates them. Other players, they know if they scream at them, it's going to shut them down. So they know how to talk to their different individual players for the better of the whole of the team. And those are your great leaders and coaches in athletics. Same thing goes in corporate. Same thing goes if you have a team, a group, whatever it is. If you're leading people, to know their personality and know how you're going to interact with them to be the most effective is a very, very powerful personal development tool. If you're too harsh, you may not get them to say very much to you. So that was the last bullet point there. So be calm, ask questions, figure out common, topics to talk about, and you'll probably be able to get good results from an introvert. Finally, the third personality type are 50-50s. People who are outgoing, but can also be quiet and reserved depending on the situation. Okay, so with those types of people, what you want to do with 50-50s is you really have to pay attention, because these are people that are difficult sometimes to figure out where they're coming from. Are they quiet today? Are they outgoing today? Who are they actually really? A lot of people will say that about me. Like, I pretty much have an outgoing personality, but when I first come into a situation, sometimes I'll be very calm and quiet. I'll just listen and I'll see, what's the situation all about before I start, opening up and talking. So this is the hardest type of person to communicate with, because they can mix things up. You have to listen and ask questions at the right time. If you sense a 50-50 is in an outgoing mood, then do more listening. If you sense that they are in a more reserved mood, then ask more questions. A good communicator is someone who can identify when to listen and when to speak, and 50-50s will help you in building your communication skills in both areas, because you won't know every single time what's the mood of that person, what's their energy like right now, okay? So that's why 50-50s are fantastic to develop these communication skills, because they're like 2 in 1. So you can practice, and shift your energy. So you'll test it and you'll talk to them and go, okay, blah, 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 blah. And you'll see if they give you a strong, long-winded response with a lot of energy, then you'll know that they're more in an extroverted mode. But if they just give you a 1-word or 2-word answer, or they're really quiet, or they don't have much to say, then you know that they're in that introverted mode, okay? And they're kind of waiting to see what you're going to say. So all of this stuff is what successful people use to be able to communicate with others. And being able to communicate with others is vital in terms of achieving dreams and goals, whether it's personal, relationship, career, or business, whether it's individual or for a group. Communication skills are really important. So again, the quick review. You have your mentors, your peers, and your followers, who are your status types. You have your extroverts, your introverts, and your 50-50s, who are your personality types. Really simple and easy to comprehend. So that's it. That was a simple session 6, 3 types of people based on status and personality. We will probably do maybe some role plays. If we're doing any coaching or anything around this, there's ways where, we can do some role plays and be able to show how would you get some information out of somebody. Let's say that you have a product or service that you're trying to share with somebody and they're not giving you very much. You say, here's my, what I'm sharing with you. And they're like, okay, oh, that's interesting. Now, what do you say? And you tell them, well, this has really been working out very well for me. I just like to show you some information. Okay. How do you keep a conversation going? Or the opposite, hey, I've got this product service. I don't really need any product service. To tell you the truth right now, what I'm using is this, that, and the other thing. As a matter of fact, let me tell you a story about my wife. I gave this product that I'm using to my wife, And oh my gosh, she's never been better in her life. I mean, I'm telling you, like, your product sounds really good, but the bottom line is my product is the best thing that I've ever seen since sliced bread. How are you going to respond to that person? Well, there'll be some things that we can go through when we're doing some examples and role playing based on this, foundation that we're giving you here. So, these are the things that will help you with communication skills. How you can get into somebody else's conversation and then swing it back your direction at the right moment in the right time. They won't even know that it happened because it'll feel like a natural flow, but you'll know because you're going to say, I'm going to give them 2 or 3 more, sentences, 2 or 3 more topics that are coming out of them. And that's when I'm going to make my move, and I'm going to come back in and try to swing it back the other direction. But if I go right now, they're in such a dominant energy right now, trying to tell me about what they're doing. This is not the right time to interject. Or you just may want to get away from the person if you realize it's going to be a waste of your time because they're not respecting your energy, right? So there's just ways that you can do this stuff. All right, that's it. Thanks for listening, session 6, and on to session 7.